You've reached the final video, and if you've watched the previous 3, you now possess knowledge that literally puts you above 99% of people when it comes to dominant presence and powerful body language. You know how to move slowly to command attention. You know how to occupy space to establish territory. You know how to use immobility to create unbearable pressure. You know how to control visual hierarchy through head position. You know how strategic pauses make your words worth their weight in gold. You know how emotional ambiguity makes you unpredictable and more obeyed. And you know how strategic physical touch crosses the barrier of personal space and establishes dominance that cannot be challenged. But here's the problem no one tells you. Fragmented knowledge is dangerous. Because you may know all these individual techniques, but if you don't know how to integrate them into a fluid and natural performance, you'll seem robotic, artificial, like someone trying too hard instead of someone who naturally commands. And worse, now that you know the game, you'll start seeing it happening everywhere. That boss who always intimidated you, he's using these techniques. That colleague who gets everything he wants, he's using these techniques. And when you start using them too, some of them will sense the change, and they'll try to test you, challenge you, push you back into the submissive position you occupied before. So in this 4th and final video, I'm going to give you the final 3 pieces of the puzzle that transform knowledge into mastery. First, the complete synthesis, how to tie all the gestures together in an integrated sequence that flows naturally. Second, the practical commandments, clear and actionable rules that you can start following today. And third, the final choice, the moment of truth where you decide whether you will truly master your presence or continue to be dominated. In the next few minutes, you'll learn 11 final lessons, ranging from repeating the commandments to understanding that body language is the first language of power, prior to and superior to any word. Machiavelli said that constant adaptability is the mark of those who survive. So this final video is about giving you the complete map, not just the weapons, but how to use them in real warfare. After this video, you'll have no more excuses. Either you dominate or you are dominated. Let's go. If something inside you awakened while listening, don't ignore that feeling. This channel isn't about videos, it's about memories. Remember who you were before the fear, before the exhaustion, before the silence. Each new video here is a different reflection of your own soul, an invitation to understand what the world never taught you. The power you seek outside has always been within you. If you feel that this journey speaks to what lives silently within you, sign up now. Not to follow yet another creator, but to reconnect with something the world tried to make you forget. Because here, every word was made to heal, each reflection to awaken, and each video serves as a reminder. You are not alone on the path back to yourself. Click on subscribe and turn the algorithm into a daily reminder of who you really are. And if you're subscribed to the channel, we have a bonus in the first pinned comment. Let's delve even deeper into the technical details of this asymmetrical expression, because the difference between doing it well and doing it badly is the difference between appearing mysterious and powerful versus appearing strange or even ridiculous. The side that shows slight intensity or disapproval needs to be worked with surgical precision. It's not about making an obvious grimace, it's about controlled micro-expressions that suggest something without explicitly stating it. Think about how that professor everyone respected looked at you when you said something questionable. One corner of the mouth slightly pulled up, not up in a smile, and not down in an obvious frown, but in a position that was exactly between approval and disapproval. One eyebrow perhaps slightly higher than the other, creating a subtle asymmetry. The eyes on that side might be slightly more half-closed, as if evaluating with skepticism. The overall result is an expression that says, "Show me more, I'm still not convinced," without a single word. Compare that to the other side of the face, which remains practically neutral. No extra tension, no movement, just existing there as a contrast to the active side. This asymmetry is what creates the magic. If both sides did the same thing, it would be a clear expression of disapproval or skepticism. Easy to read, easy to counter. But when only one side expresses it while the other remains neutral, you create a mixed message that the other person's brain can't fully process. Machiavelli would have loved this technique because it perfectly embodies the concept of maintaining strategic ambiguity. You're not explicitly disapproving, so the person can't accuse you of being negative, but you're also not approving, so the person can't relax and assume they passed the test. There's a fascinating neurological aspect to why asymmetrical expressions are so unsettling. The human brain is programmed to seek symmetry because symmetry generally indicates health and honesty. When we see a perfectly symmetrical face expressing emotion, our brain relaxes. Okay, I understand what this person is feeling. And boom. But when we see asymmetry, especially intentional emotional asymmetry, our brain triggers a mild alert. Something here isn't right. I can't categorize this clearly. I need to pay attention. And this state of alert translates into psychological tension that benefits the person creating the asymmetry. The other person becomes slightly more anxious, slightly more focused on trying to please you, slightly less self-assured. And all this happens without you saying a word. It's pure power of controlled facial expression. And there's another important detail. The asymmetry needs to look natural, as if it were simply your face when you're thinking or evaluating something. It can't look like you're giving a theatrical performance. The difference lies in subtlety and consistency. If you only make this expression occasionally in dramatic moments, it will look fake. But if you develop a pattern where this is one of your natural expressions when processing information, people will simply accept it as part of who you are. A difficult-to-read, unpredictable person who keeps their cards close to their chest. The calculated use of force through facial micro-expressions is an art that takes time to master, but the returns are disproportionately large compared to the effort invested. Here's a specific exercise that will accelerate your mastery. Record your conversations with permission when necessary and watch them in slow motion, focusing exclusively on your face. You'll probably discover that your expressions are very symmetrical, very obvious, very legible. You smile with your whole face. You frown with your whole face. There's no ambiguity whatsoever. Now, consciously practice creating a symmetry. When you're in a conversation and someone tells you something, instead of reacting with a full facial expression, activate only one side of your face. You can start simple. When someone says something funny, instead of smiling with your whole mouth, let only one corner of your mouth rise slightly while the other remains neutral. This transforms your smile from "I found that hilarious and you won me over" to "I recognize it was funny, but I'm still evaluating you." Feel the difference in power. When someone presents you with an idea, instead of furrowing both eyebrows in concentration, raise only one while the other remains relaxed. This changes your expression from "I'm really interested" to "show me why I should care." Decisions based on real human nature show that legible people are easily manipulated. Illegible people manipulate. Constant adaptability means practicing these facial asymmetries until they become part of your natural repertoire of expressions, instantly available when you need to create strategic ambiguity and keep others guessing about what you're really thinking. Now let's break down why emotional ambiguity generates obedience, because it seems counterintuitive at first glance. You'd think that being clear and transparent about what you want and how you feel would make people obey you better, right? Wrong. Brutally wrong. When you're emotionally transparent, people know exactly where they stand with you. They know what makes you happy, what irritates you, what makes you approve or disapprove, and once they've mapped your emotional system, they can play with it. They can manipulate you by giving you what you want to get what they want. They can avoid your negative reactions without actually changing their behavior, just by adjusting how they present things to you. Emotional transparency makes you predictable, and predictability is weakness in power dynamics. On the other hand, when you maintain constant emotional ambiguity, people are never sure where they stand with you. They do something and can't clearly read whether you approved or not. They propose something, and your asymmetrical and ambiguous expression neither clearly confirms nor rejects it. This state of uncertainty is psychologically intolerable for most people, so what do? They try harder. They strive harder. They offer more. They seek your approval more because they can't be sure if they've already obtained it. Machiavelli observed that princes who were too predictable in their reactions were easily manipulated by clever courtiers. But princes who kept everyone guessing, who could smile today at the one who killed you yesterday, maintained absolute control through strategic unpredictability. Humans obey perceived power, not logic, and perceived power largely stems from the inability to predict or control. There's a specific psychological phenomenon called intermittent reinforcement that perfectly explains why ambiguity breeds obedience. In animal experiments, they discovered that if you reward a behavior every time it happens, the animal learns it, but stops trying so hard once it understands the pattern. But if you reward the same behavior unpredictably, sometimes yes, sometimes no, without a clear pattern, the animal becomes obsessed with continuing to try because it never knows when the next reward will come. That's why slot machines are so addictive. Unpredictable, intermittent reinforcement. And humans, we're exactly the same. When you maintain emotional ambiguity, when people can't clearly predict whether they'll receive your approval or disapproval, they enter this state of intermittent reinforcement where they become obsessed with trying to decipher the pattern and get your validation. They work harder, try harder, obey you more, all because the unpredictability of your emotional response has created a powerful psychological hook. It's not cruel, it's simply how the human brain works. Decisions based on real human nature recognize that predictability comforts but doesn't motivate. Unpredictability is unsettling but generates intense effort. And when you want obedience and maximum effort from the people around you, emotional ambiguity is one of the most effective tools available. And here's the strategic application that transforms this theory into real power. Identify the people in your life from whom you need obedience or effort. Subordinates at work, partners on projects, even personal relationships where you want to maintain a certain level of influence. With these people, consciously begin to introduce emotional ambiguity into your reactions. When they do something well, instead of praising them effusively and clearly, respond with that ambiguous, asymmetrical expression and perhaps a neutral comment like, "Interesting," or "Okay, I see you did X." Leave them unsure if they're really on the right track. When they do something questionable, instead of criticizing clearly, respond with the same ambiguity, that unreadable expression, a long pause, and perhaps, "I'll think about it." Again, no certainty about whether they messed up or if everything is fine. What will happen? They will start coming to you more frequently, seeking clarity, seeking validation, trying to decipher how you really feel. And each time they do this, you maintain the ambiguity. Sometimes it gives a bit of clear approval, but most of the time it maintains that gray area. Over time, you'll notice that these people become more attentive to your mood, more focused on pleasing you, more obedient to your instructions, all because the unpredictability of your emotional reactions has created a psychological hook they can't let go of. The calculated use of emotional force through strategic ambiguity is one of the favorite techniques of truly effective leaders. Constant adaptability means calibrating this ambiguity. It can't be 100% of the time, or people will give up, but it also can't be rare, or it loses its effect. The ideal point is to keep people always a little uncertain about where they stand with you, always seeking the next clear validation that you rarely offer completely. Let's delve even deeper into this strategic uncertainty, because it is literally one of the purest forms of psychological power that exists. Think about it. What causes more anxiety? Knowing for sure that something bad is going to happen, or not knowing if something bad is going to happen? Studies consistently show that uncertainty is more stressful than negative certainty. People prefer a guaranteed electric shock in 5 minutes to the possibility of an electric shock sometime in the next 30 minutes. Why? Because uncertainty keeps the brain in a constant state of alert, burning mental energy, trying to predict, prepare, anticipate. It's neurologically exhausting. And when you become a source of emotional uncertainty in interactions, when people can't predict how you're going to react, you put their brains in this constant state of alert in relation to you. They spend mental energy thinking about you, trying to decipher you, trying to anticipate your reactions. And mental energy spent on you is attention, and attention is power. Machiavelli understood this perfectly. He talked about the importance of avoiding being hated because hatred unites opposition against you, but also about not being completely loved or predictable because that makes you vulnerable. The ideal was to be respected and slightly feared through unpredictability. People should always be somewhat uncertain about their reactions and intentions, because this uncertainty keeps them cautious, attentive, and obedient. It's the calculated use of psychological force through the strategic management of predictability. There's a specific technique that amplifies this power of uncertainty, intentionally varying your reactions to the same type of behavior. For example, your subordinate arrives 5 minutes late to a meeting. The first time, you don't react visibly. Neutral expression, no comment. You continue as if nothing happened. The second time it happens, you stop everything. Look at the person with that asymmetrical expression of slight disapproval, pause, and then continue without commenting verbally, but making it clear that you noticed and disapproved. The third time, you simply act as if the person wasn't even there. You don't acknowledge their arrival. You don't make eye contact. You just continue. 3 completely different reactions to the same behavior. What does this create in the person's brain? Total confusion and increasing anxiety. Wait, is lateness a problem or not? Why does he sometimes react and sometimes not? What's the pattern? There is no pattern, and that's exactly the point. The person can't learn to play the game with you because the rules are constantly changing. And in the absence of predictable rules, the tendency is always to err on the side of caution, assuming you might react badly, so it's better not to take risks. Decisions based on real human nature show that when the consequences are uncertain, people tend to behave more conservatively and obediently. It's pure psychological risk management. And you become the risk they need to manage. And here's an advanced application that will give you brutal control over group dynamics. When you're managing multiple people, team, family, social circle, use differential uncertainty. This means be consistently predictable with some people. This creates reliable allies who know where they stand with you, but maintain strategic uncertainty with others, especially those you need to keep in a state of constant effort or those who might challenge your authority. The combination is lethal because predictable people see you as fair and consistent, while uncertain people see you as unpredictable but can't complain because there's evidence from predictable people that you can be consistent. This shuts down the criticism of "you're unfair" because objectively you are fair to some, just not everyone. And uncertain people are left wondering, why can so-and-so predict their reactions, but I can't? What am I doing wrong? And this internal question generates even more effort to try to achieve your predictability, which you strategically never fully concede. Machiavelli would have applauded this technique because it creates hierarchy and control without ever explicitly stating the rules. Constant adaptability means being mindful of who you use uncertainty with and who you are predictable with, always aligned with your strategic objectives. The end justifies the means when it comes to maintaining control over complex power dynamics. And uncertainty about your reactions is one of the most sophisticated and effective means available, because it operates entirely at the psychological level without needing external tools of coercion. We now arrive at the most physically direct and potentially most powerful technique of all, the strategic use of physical touch to establish dominance and hierarchy. And look, this needs to come with a huge warning. Cultural, social, and legal context is absolutely crucial here. Inappropriate touch can destroy your reputation and even get you into serious trouble. So everything we're going to discuss here assumes contexts where touch is socially acceptable and appropriate. Professional environments where handshakes and light touches on the shoulder or arm are normal. Social contexts where there is sufficient familiarity, situations where touch does not violate any norm of consent or respect whatsoever. That said, within appropriate contexts, physical touch is a brutally effective tool for establishing hierarchy because it touches, literally, the most primitive aspect of social interactions. When you touch someone, a firm handshake, a hand on the shoulder when giving instructions, a light touch on the arm when making a point, you are invading that person's personal space in a way that requires implicit permission. And the person who can touch without explicitly asking permission is, by definition, the person in a superior position. Think about how this works naturally. The boss puts his hand on the employee's shoulder. The employee rarely does the same to the boss. The teacher touches the student on the shoulder. The student doesn't do the same to the teacher. The doctor touches the patient. The patient expects permission. Touch flows from top to bottom in the social hierarchy. So when you touch someone appropriately but confidently, you are subconsciously communicating, "I have implicit permission to enter your personal space. Therefore, I am above you in the hierarchy." Machiavelli observed that princes used physical touch strategically. A touch on the shoulder could communicate favor. An absence of touch could communicate displeasure, all without words. Let's break down the mechanics of effective hierarchical touches, because the details make all the difference. First, the touch must be confident and deliberate, never hesitant or apologetic. If you're going to put your hand on someone's shoulder, do it with a firm and clear movement, not with that weak, quick tap that seems to apologize. Second, location matters brutally. Shoulder and upper arm are generally safe and communicate paternalistic authority. Back, between the shoulder blades, is even more intimate and only works in contexts of very clear hierarchy. Forearm or hand are less hierarchical and more about connection. Completely avoid areas like the neck, face, torso, legs. These are too intimate and can be misinterpreted. Third, duration. The touch should last long enough to be consciously registered, at least 1 second, but not so long that it feels awkward. Maximum 3 seconds usually. Fourth, conversational context. The touch is most powerful when combined with instruction, advice, or redirection. "I need you to finish this by Friday." Touch on the shoulder. "Good work on the project." Touch on the arm. The touch amplifies the verbal message and anchors it physically to the other person's body. Fifth, observe the reaction. If the person becomes visibly uncomfortable, recoils, or expresses objection, you stop immediately and apologize. There is no presence technique that justifies violating another's consent or comfort. But in most appropriate contexts, the person will accept the touch naturally. And this acceptance is an implicit acknowledgement of your superior position. The calculated use of physical force through appropriate touch is one of the most direct ways to establish body hierarchy. Here's a practical application with a gradual escalation of intensity. Beginner level, start with dominant handshakes. When greeting someone, offer your hand with the palm slightly facing down, not obviously, just about 20-30 degrees. This forces the other person to turn their palm slightly upwards, creating a power asymmetry. A firm handshake, not crushing but definitely firm. Maintain eye contact and you decide when to let go. Don't let go immediately, hold for an extra half second. This already establishes a slight hierarchical advantage. Intermediate level, when appropriate in professional contexts, add a touch of the shoulder or arm when giving feedback or instructions. Hey John, good job on the report. Light touch on the shoulder while passing by. Maria, I need to talk to you about the project. Touch on the arm when calling attention. These brief touches anchor your words to the person's body and establish hierarchical familiarity. Advanced level, in situations of clear leadership where you have established authority, use directional touch, literally guiding people physically. A hand on someone's back to guide them to a seat, a touch on the shoulder to draw their attention to where you want it, etc. But be careful, this only works when hierarchy is already clear, otherwise it can seem invasive. Decisions based on real human nature recognize that humans are tactile primates, and touch communicates hierarchy in ways that words cannot. Constant adaptability means learning when touch is appropriate and effective versus when it would be counterproductive or inappropriate, always respecting absolute limits of consent and cultural context. Let's delve specifically into the timing and technique of combining touch with instructions, because this combination is particularly powerful when executed correctly. The secret here is that physical touch anchors the instruction in the person's body in a way that verbal instruction alone never can. When you say, "I need you to do X" without touch, the message remains in the abstract realm of words. It can be ignored, forgotten, reinterpreted. But when you say, "I need you to do X" and simultaneously touch the person's shoulder or arm, you've created a direct physical connection between your will and their body. The instruction ceases to be merely auditory and becomes tactile, kinesthetic, impossible to completely ignore. And there's more. Touch during instruction creates a power asymmetry that is felt but rarely verbalized. The person being touched feels, doesn't think, feels, this person has enough authority over me to enter my personal space while giving me orders. And this visceral feeling of hierarchy makes obedience seem more natural, less questionable. Machiavelli understood that the end justifies the means when it comes to getting things done, and combining touch with instruction is one of the most effective means because it completely bypasses rational resistance and goes straight to the bodily recognition of hierarchy. Politics guided by reality, not ideals, recognizes that often people obey not because they logically agree, but because their bodies have recognized submission to a physical demonstration of authority. There's a specific sequence that maximizes the impact of this technique. First, you establish eye contact with the person. Second, you physically approach, entering their personal space but not uncomfortably invading it. Third, you place your hand on their shoulder or arm, a deliberate and firm movement, not hesitant. Fourth, you maintain the touch throughout the entire instruction, not just at the beginning. Fifth, you pause briefly for silence after the instruction, still maintaining touch and eye contact. Sixth, you remove your hand in a controlled manner, not quickly as if you were doing something wrong, and step away. What did this sequence do? It created a complete ritual of establishing physical hierarchy. The approach demonstrated that you can enter the person's space. The touch demonstrated that you can touch them. Maintaining touch during the instruction physically anchored your words. The pause after the instruction still touching, created a moment of "you will confirm that you understood and will do it," without needing to verbalize it. And the controlled withdrawal demonstrated that you were in control the whole time, not the other person. All of this happens in a matter of 10 to 15 seconds, but the psychological impact is disproportionate to the time. The person leaves that interaction with a bodily sensation of having been commanded, not just informed. And commands are obeyed with much more consistency than requests or suggestions. The calculated use of force through strategic touch during instructions is one of the favorite techniques of military leaders, sports coaches, and anyone who needs quick and unquestioning obedience. And here's an advanced variation that adds layers of sophistication: the redirecting touch. It works like this: the person is doing something wrong or going in the wrong direction. Instead of just verbally correcting them, you physically touch and redirect them. For example, in a meeting, someone is going off on a tangent that doesn't matter. You stand up, walk over to the person, place your hand gently but firmly on their shoulder and say, "John, take a step back. What really matters here is why," while literally guiding, with light but clear pressure on the shoulder, their attention back to what matters. Or in a physical work context, someone is assembling something incorrectly. You place your hand on their arm, say, "Wait, let me show you," and physically guide the correct action. What did you do? You didn't just verbally correct them, you physically intervened and redirected the person's body. This creates a muscle memory of the correction that is much stronger than just auditory memory. And it also indelibly establishes that you have physical, not just verbal, authority over the situation and even over the person's movements. Decisions based on real human nature recognize that humans are physical animals before they are rational beings. And physical intervention has a much greater impact than purely verbal intervention. Constant adaptability means practicing these touch techniques in progressively more challenging contexts, always monitoring reactions and adjusting as needed, always respecting absolute limits of social appropriateness and consent. And when you master the strategic use of touch during instruction, you gain a leadership tool that very few people master, simply because most are afraid to use touch assertively. Now let's explore one of the most fundamental yet neglected concepts in human interaction. Personal space isn't just a random comfort zone. It's literal territory that defines social hierarchy. Every human being carries an invisible bubble of personal space, usually measured in concentric circles. Intimate zone, up to 45 cm. Personal zone, 45 cm to 1.2 m. Social zone, 1.2 to 3.6 m. And public zone, beyond 3.6. And here's the brutal truth no one told you. Whoever can enter the most intimate zones without explicit permission is, by definition, in a superior hierarchical position. Think about how this works naturally. Your parents could enter your intimate zone when you were a child without asking. Your boss can get very close to you to look at something on your computer without consulting you first. The police officer can enter your personal space during an encounter. All of these are examples of hierarchy being expressed through permitted invasion of personal space. On the other hand, you don't enter your boss's intimate space without being invited. You don't get close to someone of perceived superior status without feeling discomfort. Because personal space, as both territory and a sign of hierarchy, is one of the most powerful unwritten rules governing social interactions. Machiavelli would have loved this concept. Controlling how much personal space you need versus how much personal space others need from you is a direct and measurable demonstration of relative power. Decisions based on real human nature recognize that physical territory and social territory are essentially the same thing. Whoever controls more space has more power. There's a fascinating dynamic that occurs when two people of uncertain hierarchy meet. They subconsciously negotiate personal space in the first few seconds of interaction to establish who is above whom. Observe this in your next conversation. Someone takes a step forward, slightly invading your personal space. If you retreat, maintaining distance, you have tacitly accepted an inferior position. You have ceded territory. If you maintain your position and don't retreat, you are contesting the invasion and maintaining equality. If you also take a step forward, counter-invading the person's space, you are challenging or establishing superiority. All of this happens without words, in seconds, but completely defines the power dynamic of the interaction. And most people with a weak presence automatically retreat when their space is invaded. They don't even realize they are doing it. It's an instinct to avoid conflict, but by retreating, they are constantly ceding territory and establishing themselves as subordinate in all interactions. On the other hand, people with a dominant presence never retreat. They maintain their position when invaded, or they counter-invade. And this refusal to yield physical territory also communicates a refusal to yield social territory. The calculated use of spatial force through the management of personal space is one of the most subtle yet constant techniques. You are doing this, well or badly, in every physical interaction you have. Here's a practice that will transform your awareness of this. For 1 week, pay obsessive attention to who invades whose space in all the interactions you observe or participate in. At work, notice who approaches whom, who backs away, who maintains their position. In conversations, observe the dance of proximity, who controls the distance, and most importantly, observe your own pattern. When someone invades your space, what is your automatic reaction? If you tend to back away, you've identified one of the biggest saboteurs of your presence. From this awareness, start practicing not backing away. When someone gets too close, maintain your position. Let the proximity be uncomfortable for the other person, not for you. And in appropriate situations, start practicing strategic invasion. When you need to give feedback or instruction, approach the person by entering their personal zone, not intimate. That's too much. Observe how this completely changes the energy of the interaction. The person becomes more attentive, more deferential, more focused on you. Why? Because your invasion of their personal space activated a primitive recognition of hierarchy. Machiavelli observed that princes who controlled physical space, who approached, who sat where in audiences, who was allowed into which rooms, also controlled political power. The same dynamic applies on a micro scale in all your interactions. Constant adaptability means developing the ability to invade space when strategically advantageous, defend your space when invaded, and use distance as a tool for communicating hierarchy. And when you master this technique, you gain control over something that most people don't even realize is happening, but that fundamentally defines who has power in each interaction. We now arrive at the most psychologically profound aspect of strategic touch. It not only establishes hierarchy, it proves to everyone involved, including yourself, that you have a legitimate right to be in a position of command. And look, this touches something very primitive in the human psyche. Since we are children, we learn that certain people can touch us, and we cannot touch them back in the same way: parents, teachers, doctors, authorities. This asymmetry of touch is ingrained in our understanding of social hierarchy. So when you, as an adult, touch someone confidently in an appropriate context, be it a dominant handshake, a hand on the shoulder when giving feedback, a touch on the arm when redirecting attention, you are activating that same primitive circuit that says, whoever can touch has authority. And the most fascinating thing is that this works both ways. Not only does the person touched feel that you have authority, you yourself begin to feel and believe in your own authority. It's a self-reinforcing cycle. The more you touch others confidently and appropriately, the more your brain accepts that you are indeed someone in a position of power. And the more your brain accepts this, the more naturally you project a dominant presence in all aspects. Machiavelli understood that the appearance of virtue often creates real virtue. When you act like someone with legitimate authority, you begin to develop legitimate authority. And confident touch is one of the most direct ways to act like someone with authority, because it requires an internal belief that you have the right to enter the personal space of others. There's a crucial difference between confident touch and hesitant touch that needs to be understood in detail. Hesitant touch is when you slightly raise your hand towards the person, but pause, as if waiting for permission. When you touch, but immediately remove your hand as if you've done something wrong. When you touch, but your whole body is tense and apologetic. This type of touch communicates, "I'm not sure if I have the right to do this. Sorry if I'm intruding." And the other person's response is automatically to treat you as someone without authority, because you yourself have demonstrated that you don't believe you have authority. On the other hand, confident touch is when you move your hand deliberately, without hesitation, place it firmly but not aggressively, hold it for the appropriate time without rushing to remove it, and your whole body is relaxed as if it were the most natural thing in the world. This type of touch communicates, "I have every right to do this. This is appropriate and expected within our hierarchical relationship." And the other person's response is automatically acceptance, because your confidence in the gesture has convinced their primitive brain that you really do have the authority to do that. It's the calculated use of psychological force through body language that doesn't allow for questioning. When you act as if you're entitled, people assume you are until proven otherwise. And in most appropriate contexts, that proof never comes. People simply accept the hierarchy your confident touch has established. And here's an exercise that will solidify this skill. Before any situation where you'll need to touch someone appropriately, greetings, feedback, instructions, spend 30 seconds mentally preparing yourself. It's not about planning the touch, it's about establishing your internal belief that you have every right to do so. Mentally tell yourself, "I have the right to command attention. I have the right to enter this person's space in an appropriate context. I have authority here." Sounds silly? Maybe. But those 30 seconds of self-convincing will completely change how your body executes the touch. Instead of hesitant and apologetic, it will be firm and natural. And this difference is instantly picked up by the other person's brain. After the touch, don't make apologetic gestures. Don't rub your hand. Don't quickly recoil. Don't make a "sorry if that was strange" expression. Simply continue the interaction as if the touch were absolutely normal and appropriate, because within the right context, it is. Decisions based on genuine human nature recognize that confidence is contagious. When you are absolutely certain you have the right to do something, others rarely question it. Constant adaptability means practicing confident touch in progressively more challenging contexts until it becomes your natural form of physical interaction in leadership situations. And when you reach that level, when you can touch appropriately without hesitation because you genuinely believe you have the right to lead, you will have access to a form of dominant presence that is viscerally felt by everyone around you, but that very few people can articulate or counter, because it operates on a much deeper level than words or logic. Now let's tie all this together in a synthesis that will make it crystal clear what's at stake here. You've reached this point, absorbed techniques of slow movement, space occupation, strategic immobility, visual hierarchy, powerful pauses, emotional ambiguity, and confident touch. And maybe you're thinking, this seems like a lot of work, or do I really need all this? So here's the unfiltered truth that will answer those questions. You have no choice. The question isn't whether you'll play the game of presence and body dominance. The question is whether you'll play consciously or continue to lose unconsciously. Because this game is happening right now, in every interaction you have. The people around you are constantly evaluating your body language, drawing conclusions about your status and authority, deciding whether to obey you or ignore you. And they do this based on the signals your body is sending, whether you want them to or not. So you can continue sending signals of submission without realizing it. Quick, nervous movements, a hunched posture, apologetic gestures, looking down, responding immediately, being completely legible, never touching or invading space. And accept a life where you are constantly ignored, discarded and overlooked by less qualified people. Or you can consciously master your presence using the techniques you've learned here, and finally begin to receive the respect, attention and obedience that your skills deserve, but that your weak body language was sabotaging. Machiavelli would say that constant adaptability is the mark of those who survive and thrive. And adapting your physical presence to the realities of human power is simply pragmatism, not manipulation. Let's be even more direct about what happens if you ignore all this. You'll spend the rest of your life wondering why less intelligent, less qualified, less dedicated people achieve what you don't. You'll blame injustice, politics, luck. And look, those things exist, but the inconvenient truth is that in most cases, these people are succeeding because they master, consciously or unconsciously, the body language of power, while you continue to speak only the language of technical competence. And humans obey perceived power, not logic. So your brilliant ideas will continue to be ignored, while mediocre ideas presented with a dominant presence are applauded. Your instructions will continue to be questioned or simply ignored, while identical instructions given by someone with presence are obeyed without hesitation. You will continue to wait for one day, someone to recognize your value, while that day never comes because you are not communicating value through the only language the primitive brain truly understands, the body language of dominance. Decisions based on true human nature require acknowledging this brutal truth. It doesn't matter how right you are if nobody takes you seriously, and nobody takes you seriously if your physical presence screams, "I am irrelevant." Is it cruel? Maybe. Is it unfair? Probably. Is it real? Absolutely. And you can keep complaining about the injustice, or you can accept reality and use the tools available to change your position within that reality. On the other hand, here's what happens when you truly master these techniques and integrate them into your natural way of being. Suddenly doors begin to open without you having to force them. People start seeking you out, asking for your opinion, your advice, your leadership. Your words gain weight disproportionate to their content. People stop to listen when you speak. Instructions you give are followed with less resistance and questioning. You enter rooms and automatically attract attention without having to do anything other than exist with a dominant presence. Negotiations begin to lean in your favor without you having to negotiate so hard. Conflicts are resolved more in your favor because your physical presence has already established who has more power in the situation. And look, you haven't become a different person internally. You've only aligned your external communication with the value you've always had, but was hidden behind weak body language. The calculated use of force through a dominant presence isn't about becoming someone you're not. It's about finally allowing who you truly are to be seen and respected. Machiavelli understood that the end justifies the means when it comes to achieving your potential, and mastering physical presence is simply the means to finally translate your inner worth into external recognition. So here is your final choice, crystal clear and brutal. You can remain the invisible genius that everyone ignores, or you can master your presence and finally be seen, heard, respected, and obeyed. The techniques are before you. The choice is yours. But choosing to do nothing is also a choice. It's choosing to continue losing a game you didn't even know you were playing. Let's crystallize everything you've learned into clear, actionable commandments that you can literally start applying today. These aren't suggestions, they're commands that, if followed consistently, will radically transform how you are perceived and treated in all interactions. First commandment: move slowly. Completely eliminate haste from your movements. When picking up an object, pick it up with deliberate slowness. When turning your head, turn in a controlled manner. When walking, take firm but unhurried steps. Remember, prey moves fast, predator moves slowly. Second commandment: occupy space as if it belonged to you by divine right. Shoulders back, chest open, legs firmly planted on the ground. Spread your belongings, occupying territory. Use the armrests of chairs, place your arms on surfaces, claim the airspace around you with expansive gestures when appropriate. Never shrink, never minimize your physical presence. Third commandment: remain still when speaking or listening. Eliminate restlessness, nervous gestures, and purposeless movements. Become a solid and unreadable presence that concentrates energy instead of dispersing it. The less you move, the more powerful you seem. Fourth commandment: pause before responding. Never react immediately. Create space between stimulus and response where your power resides. Let silence work in your favor, creating tension that enhances your words and establishes that your time is more valuable than the anxiety of others. These first 4 commandments alone will put you above 90% of people who live in a constant reactive and submissive mode. Fifth commandment: control visual hierarchy. Never look up at anyone unless it's strategically advantageous to feign temporary submission. Keep your chin neutral or slightly lowered, forcing others to look up to meet you. Use height strategically whenever possible. Sixth commandment: maintain emotional ambiguity through asymmetrical expressions. Never be completely legible. One side of your face may suggest something while the other remains neutral. Always leave people a little uncertain about what you're really thinking or feeling. Uncertainty breeds anxiety. Anxiety breeds effort to please you. Seventh commandment: touch confidently in appropriate contexts. Dominant handshakes, hand on the shoulder when giving instructions, touch on the arm when redirecting. Never hesitate, never apologize for the touch. Act as if you have the full right to enter someone else's personal space because, within appropriate leadership contexts, you do. Eighth commandment: never back down when your space is invaded. Maintain your position or counter-invade. Personal space is territory, and whoever yields territory yields power. Ninth commandment: vary your reactions to the same behavior to maintain unpredictability. Sometimes respond one way, sometimes another. Never allow people to completely map your reaction system. 10th commandment: practice all of this until it becomes second nature, not performance. The ultimate goal is not to act a dominant presence, it is to be a dominant presence. Machiavelli would say that virtue needs to be developed through constant practice until it becomes an essential part of who you are, not something you put on and take off like a mask. Here's the integration instruction that will make all this work. Don't try to implement all the commandments at once. That will overwhelm you and you'll give up. Instead, choose 2 commandments per week. Week 1. Focus only on moving slowly and occupying space. Practice this obsessively until it starts to feel natural. Week 2. Add stillness and pauses. Now you have 4 commandments in operation. Week 3. Add visual hierarchy and emotional ambiguity. Week 4. Add confident touch and territorial defense. Week 5. Add strategic unpredictability and practice integrating everything. By the end of 5 weeks of conscious and deliberate practice, these behaviors will begin to become automatic. Your brain will have created new neural patterns, your body will have muscle memory of the correct movements, and your presence will have fundamentally changed. Constant adaptability means continuing to refine even after the basics have become natural. There are always deeper levels of mastery available. Decisions based on real human nature recognize that real behavioral change requires time and consistent repetition. You won't become a master of dominant presence overnight. But if you follow these commandments with discipline for a few weeks, you'll start to see tangible results. People treating you differently, respecting you more, obeying you with less resistance. And these results will motivate you to continue refining until dominant presence is simply who you are, not something you try to do. The calculated use of force through disciplined practice is the path to all mastery, and mastery of presence is no exception. Here we arrive at a fundamental truth that will completely reorganize your understanding of communication and power. Body language is not a complement to verbal communication. It is the primary language, the first language that all humans understand even before developing the capacity to process words. Think about it. A 6-month-old baby doesn't understand Portuguese, English, or any spoken language. But it perfectly understands when someone approaches with loving versus threatening body language. It responds to tone of voice, posture, facial expressions, long before understanding a single word. This ability to read body language predates verbal language in human evolution by millions of years. It is older, deeper, more primitive, and therefore more powerful. Because body language speaks directly to the reptilian and limbic brain, the parts that control emotions, instincts, and survival responses. Words speak to the neocortex, the rational part that can be deceived, distracted, confused. But the body speaks to the part that doesn't lie and isn't easily fooled. That's why you can say, "I'm calm," but if your body is tense and restless, nobody believes the words, they believe the body. That's why someone can have the most logical argument in the world, but if their body language screams insecurity, the argument is discarded. Machiavelli observed that the most effective princes were those who mastered not only verbal rhetoric, but communication through physical presence, because they intuitively understood that the primary language of power is not what you say, but how your body exists in space. Decisions based on real human nature recognize that when there is a conflict between verbal and body language, the primitive brain will always believe the body. And there's a brutal implication to this that most people never consider. You can be completely illiterate in verbal language and still dominate other people if you are fluent in body language. Think about how many leaders throughout history were mediocre or even bad at verbal articulation, but commanded brutal loyalty through sheer physical presence. On the other hand, you can be the most eloquent speaker on the planet, but if your body language is communicating submission, your beautiful words will fall on deaf ears. This explains why so many intelligent and articulate people are ignored, while less articulate people with a dominant presence are blindly followed. Because human masses respond first and most strongly to the first language, body language. When you understand this, you understand why mastering physical presence is not optional if you want real power. It's not a nice to have, it's not an extra bonus, it's the foundation. It's the basis without which all your other skills, intelligence, eloquence, technical knowledge, remain invisible or irrelevant. Humans obey perceived power, not logic, and power is perceived first and foremost through body language. If your body is saying, "I am submissive," it doesn't matter what your mouth is saying. You are perceived as submissive and treated as such. If your body is saying, "I am dominant," even if your mouth is saying simple or banal things, you are perceived as powerful and treated with deference. The primary language of power defines everything. And here's the shift in perspective that will completely set you free. Stop seeing body language work as manipulation or falseness. You're not being fake. You're finally learning to speak fluently the first language that everyone around you is already speaking and reading all the time. You've spent years, maybe decades, focusing on developing your verbal language, studying, reading, learning to articulate complex ideas. That's important. But imagine you've spent all that time learning to write beautiful prose, while everyone around you was having conversations in sign language that you never learned. Your prose is beautiful, but nobody can hear it because you don't know the language they're actually using. Body language is that universal sign language that governs all power interactions, and you've been essentially mute in that language your whole life. Now you're learning to speak, to articulate, to communicate power through the first language. It's not falsehood. It's finally developing competence in a critical area that was neglected. Machiavelli understood that the appearance of virtue is not falsehood when it effectively communicates the real value that exists within. It's simply effective communication. Dominant presence through body language isn't about pretending to be something you're not. It's about finally communicating effectively through the primary language, the value, competence, and authority you already possess, but which were hidden behind body language illiteracy. Constant adaptability means recognizing that you need to be fluent in multiple languages of power, verbal, written, and body, and that neglecting any of them puts you at a brutal disadvantage. The calculated use of force through mastery of the primary language of power is simply evolutionary pragmatism. You are learning to speak the language that the human brain most instinctively understands and obeys. We've reached the final moment of truth, where everything boils down to a brutal binary choice that will define the trajectory of the rest of your life. There's no middle ground, no comfortable gray area where you can sit on the fence. Either you dominate your physical presence and start having your commands obeyed, your ideas taken seriously, your value recognized, or you continue with a weak presence and accept an existence where everything you say sounds like an ignorable request, where your contributions are forgotten, where less qualified people repeatedly betray you. And look, this isn't a moral judgment about who you are as a person. It's not about being good or bad, virtuous or corrupt. It's simply about recognizing a brutal reality of human nature. Dominant presence generates obedience. Weak presence generates indifference. You may find this unfair. It probably is. You may think it should work differently. Perhaps it should. But Machiavelli would tell you exactly what I'm telling you now. Politics guided by reality, not by ideals, demands that you accept the world as it is, not as you would like it to be. And the real world, stripped of all fairy tales about pure meritocracy and recognition based solely on competence, is a place where body language determines hierarchy, and hierarchy determines who is heard and who is ignored. When you have a dominant presence, people stop what they are doing when you enter the room. When you speak, there is respectful silence. When you give an instruction, it is followed with minimal questioning. When you propose an idea, it is seriously considered. On the other hand, when you have a weak presence, you can enter and leave rooms without anyone really noticing. When you speak, people continue side conversations or look at their cell phones. When you give an instruction, there is discussion, procrastination, forgetfulness. When you propose an idea, it is quickly discarded or worse, stolen by someone with more presence who will resubmit it and receive the credit. And there's an even harder truth you need to accept. You can't remain neutral in this choice. Even if you decide, I'm not going to do anything, I'm going to stay as I am, you're making a choice. You're choosing weak presence and all the consequences that come with it. Because the game is happening whether you like it or not. The people around you are constantly reading your body language, drawing conclusions, establishing hierarchies. You can participate consciously using the techniques you've learned, or you can continue participating unconsciously by sending submissive signals that place you at the bottom of the hierarchy. But you can't not participate. That option doesn't exist. So the real choice is, do you want to have conscious control over the message your body is sending, or do you want to continue on autopilot sending messages that sabotage you? And look, I know what might be going through your head right now, but this seems like a lot of work. This isn't who I naturally am. I don't want to have to think about all this all the time. And I completely understand those objections. But here's the truth. In the beginning, yes, it will require conscious effort. It will seem artificial, it will be uncomfortable, but you know what requires even more effort and is more uncomfortable? Spending your entire life being ignored, underestimated, left behind, seeing your potential wasted because you can't communicate it effectively. That pain is also real, but it's a chronic and inescapable pain instead of the acute and temporary pain of learning something new. Decisions based on real human nature require choosing which discomfort you prefer to live with, the temporary discomfort of change and growth, or the permanent discomfort of powerlessness and frustration. So here is your final choice, unfiltered and straightforward. From this moment on, you can begin to implement the commandments you have learned. Move slowly, occupy space, remain still, pause before responding, control visual hierarchy, maintain emotional ambiguity, touch confidently. It will be strange at first. Some people around you will notice the change and comment. You will have moments of doubt where you will want to return to the old, comfortable patterns of submission. But if you persist through this initial discomfort, in a few weeks, these techniques will begin to feel natural. In a few months, they will simply be who you are. And throughout this process, you will notice tangible changes. More respect, more attention, more obedience, more recognition. Doors that were closed will begin to open. Opportunities you never had access to will appear. Not because you have become a different person internally, but because you have finally learned to communicate your true value through the primary language everyone understands. This is the first option. The second option is to shut down this knowledge, return to your current pattern, and continue waiting for people to magically recognize your value one day without you having to do anything different. Machiavelli would tell you that the end justifies the means, and if your end is to have a real impact on the world, to be heard, to be respected, to have your ideas implemented, then mastering physical presence is simply one of the necessary means. Constant adaptability means having the courage to change what isn't working, even when the change is uncomfortable. So choose now. Dominant presence or weak presence. Commands obeyed or requests ignored. Real power or impotence disguised as virtue. The choice has always been and always will be yours. So that's it. You've made it this far, absorbed 7 brutally powerful gestures that separate those who command from those who obey, those who are listened to from those who are ignored, those who rise from those who stagnate. And now comes the question that really matters, the only question that will define whether this knowledge changes your life or becomes just more interesting information that you forget in 3 days. What are you going to do with it? Because look, knowledge without application is entertainment, not transformation. You may have understood everything about slow movement, space occupation, strategic immobility, visual hierarchy, powerful pauses, emotional ambiguity, and confident touch. But if tomorrow you wake up and revert to the same old patterns, nervous movements, a hunched body, immediate responses to everything, being completely legible and never claiming territory, then nothing changes. You continue to be ignored, left behind, obeying people less qualified than you. And then in 6 months, a year, 5 years, you'll be in exactly the same place wondering, why doesn't my life change? And the answer will be brutal. Because you haven't changed. You had the information, you understood the strategy, but you lacked the courage to implement it. So here's my direct challenge to you. Choose 2 of the 7 gestures, just 2, and obsessively implement them over the next 2 weeks. Don't try to do everything at once. Take moving slowly and occupying space and practice until it hurts in every interaction, every meeting, every conversation. Force your body to slow down, force your body to occupy territory and observe what happens. Observe how people start treating you differently without knowing why. And here are the questions you need to ask yourself right now, bluntly. How much longer will you let less competent people control you? How many more opportunities will you miss because your physical presence doesn't communicate your true value? How many more years will you waste being invisible when you should be impossible to ignore? These questions hurt, I know, but they need to hurt because pain is what moves you from your comfort zone to your growth zone. And look, I'm not asking you to become a different person. I'm not asking you to abandon your essence or your integrity. I'm asking you to finally let your essence be seen through body language that communicates power instead of submission. I'm asking you to stop sabotaging your own potential with gestures that scream, "Ignore me," when you should be screaming, "Respect me." Machiavelli would say that constant adaptability is the mark of those who survive and thrive. So adapt. Change what isn't working. Master your presence or accept being dominated. There is no third option. Decisions based on true human nature require the courage to confront uncomfortable truths and act upon them. So act. Today, now. Take those 2 gestures, start practicing them, and don't stop until they become who you naturally are. Look, if this content resonated with you, if you finally understood why you were losing a game you didn't even know you were playing, then you need to keep learning. Because these 7 gestures are just the beginning. There are layers and layers of power, influence, and presence strategies that most people will never have access to because no one has the courage to teach these brutally honest truths. So subscribe to the channel right now and activate the notification bell. Because in the next videos, we're going to dive even deeper. How to use verbal language to amplify physical presence. How to read and counter attempts at domination from others. How to build a presence that works specifically in digital and virtual environments. How to combine all these techniques to create such a magnetic presence that opportunities start seeking you out instead of you having to chase them. This is content that can literally change the trajectory of your life, from invisibility to protagonism, from obedience to command, from frustration to real power, but only if you keep learning and applying it. So click the subscribe button, turn on notifications, and get ready because what's coming next will give you powerful tools that most people never even dream exist. And comment below, which of the 7 gestures will you start practicing first? Which insight impacted you the most? I want to know if this content resonated with you, if you finally understood the game. See you in the next video, where we'll continue to unravel the secrets of power that no one teaches you. Until then, master your presence, because the world obeys those who know how to lead.